Hello and welcome back to Take 5, the internet's newest conversational review show. Tonight we're going to be talking about Amelie. We're going back in time a little bit. We're getting off that new movie bandwagon. And with us tonight we have Ayla, who's been with us before. We have Eric, yay, our friend. And we have Jeff. To begin though, I just want to get everyone's quick feeling on this movie. So Ayla, we're going to start with you. Did you like this movie, not like this movie?
I enjoyed this movie, yes.
Okay.
It's a foreign movie.
And you've seen it before?
I've seen it before. It's been a long time, but I still enjoyed it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. I appreciated the I think the thing I liked the most was its filming quality, like all the cool shots and the technical stuff, and some of the way they arranged the various set pieces. I think that was some of my favorite.
And of what I understood, I enjoyed this movie.
Well, I think you have a little secret for us, right?
Yeah, I fell asleep in the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And then when I came to, I didn't really know what was going on. And then it was just piecing together whatever was happening. And it looked cool.
And I just want to say that you very politely sat there in bewilderment and made your own journey of putting it back together. You didn't fuck with any of us. You didn't say, what's it about? You just sat there and be like, I don't know what's going on, and we'll figure it out.
We totally would have paused it and been like, okay, we'll
Best movie guest ever. It's true. Best movie guest ever. Okay, let's get into our questions. Okay, our first question tonight is, what's the possibility this movie was secretly produced by Wes Anderson?
That's my question.
Interesting. Very interesting. Your question?
Yeah.
Well, first, before we answer the question, what about the movie made you write this question?
I guess it's because, like, currently, of mainstream directors that have, like, a particular attention to, or pay particular attention to the way shots are framed, Wes Anderson's, like, the epitome of that. And so this movie was very quirky and very, I think, purposefully different in how it was made. So, I don't know, like, it's a foreign film, so I was just like, what's the possibility that Wes Anderson was like, you know what, got nothing going on right now here. Like, these are all my, like, throwaway ideas.
No, you're 100% right. Because, like, if you watch Royal Tenenbaums or, like, Moonrise Kingdom or something.
Well, there's same pacing.
Well, the pacing and, like, the use of a narrator to, like, indulge in details that we otherwise wouldn't get. And the specificity of, like, people's intricacies and oddities. Like, oh, this person loves doing this. And it doesn't do anything for the plot, but it does stuff for kind of explaining who they are. And that's, like, a total Wes Anderson thing.
Well, it gets you, I feel like the narrator in Amelie plays a really key part in getting you into feeling as quirky as Amelie is. You know, she's different, so that the way that they narrate those opening scenes and sort of the, like, snapshots of, like, this person likes raw chicken, whatever it is, whatever quirky stuff that these people are into, that Amelie doesn't necessarily know, but it gets the viewer into, like, her sort of weird mindset. I don't know, that's how I'm interpreting it right now.
I'm just imagining right now French people being like, fuck you Americans. Maybe Wes Anderson rips us off.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally true.
Valid point.
Yeah,
that's a very valid point.
But also, I mean, if you haven't seen this director's work, you should go back and watch it, because all of his movies actually have this great attention to detail.
Yeah.
Who's the director again?
Why don't you tell us, because you have the best French accent of anyone.
Oh my god, do you like that little plant that she did to try to...
Yeah.
I know it's Jean something Jeunet.
Jean Pierre Jeunet.
Jean Pierre Jeunet.
Jean Pierre Jeunet.
Pinky out, boys.
Delicatessen, Amelie, I'm missing a movie.
City of Lost Children.
City of Lost Children.
That's a great one.
There's like a couple shout-outs to his older stuff. Like, like in Delicatessen, there's that whole scene where like someone's having sex in the tower and the bed spring makes a noise, and like that came up here again. Right. There's some reference about like eating people, which is a part of Delicatessen.
Yeah.
Like there's.
Interesting.
I can't remember if Delicatessen was made before. I think it was before.
Let's not get too off track.
But go back, watch his movies, because they are some of the best quirky, weird movies.
Yes.
And much darker, actually, than Wes Anderson's work. Whereas Wes Anderson has that kind of like, in the family darkness, right, about human relations. Jean Pierre
Jeunet.
Jeunet. Is just dark, wonderfully dark.
I won't be too pompous during this.
No, my French accent is horrible. I can't speak French because I'm American and we don't have to.
Well, Jean Pierre Jeunet is one of the easier French names.
That's true.
So we lucked out.
French fries is the only French I know.
French fries.
That's so sad I said that. I'm like legitimately
We can
embarrassed.
cut that out in the post.
He took the
I
bait
took it.
hard.
She was like, take it, Safar. Yeah.
Just cut to a cliff when you say that.
What was that?
Just like cut to a cliff when you say that.
There'll be a fight in the editing room later. Our romantic leads don't meet until the last scene of the movie. How do people feel about that? So we have an entire movie, and this movie's been in the rental stores forever, so obviously there are spoilers. Our romantic leads are chasing each other throughout this movie, right? And we have this sort of cat and mouse game going. It's in some ways it's kind of like a mousetrap game, right? This thing leads to this thing, leads to this thing, leads to this thing, and they don't actually get together. Which I have to say, when they get together, is one of the most subtly erotic.
Yes. This is my question.
Beautiful. Like you kind of want to sit in your. I'll be honest. You want to maybe sit in your chair for a second until the movie's over. Just give yourself a moment of breather. Figure it out.
So
it's beautiful.
This was my question because of that scene, and I'm comparing it to a movie we recently watched, Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
I won't bring it up too much, but the love story between Amelie and Nino.
Yeah, Nino.
So Amelie and Nino, their love story is more entertaining, and I get more emotionally involved, even though the two characters don't really see each other or connect until that final scene when they do have sex. I mean, but still, I was okay with that.
How freaking erotic! I mean, I don't want to sound like the creepy uncle here.
How erotic?
But it was so erotic. No, because so in the scene,
it was so simple.
They're like she kisses every place on his face except for his lips.
Reciprocates.
He reciprocates, and I was just sitting there thinking like, I want a girlfriend to do this scene with, right? It was
you could like feel it in your face.
You could feel it. It was so beautiful. And then at the end, she's just
really
like holding him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's no gratuitous. Like the only breast shot we get in this, right, is in the beginning with like the pregnant mom.
No, and in the
orgasm
porn
montage.
shop.
Oh, and the porn shop. I didn't really notice.
Exotic dance.
It's so banal and like common in the porn shop, right?
And the orgasm montage.
But you never see.
I don't think you have full.
Oh, you do. That's right.
Maybe?
You do. Yeah. I know I didn't remember these.
I saw
scenes.
titties.
Yeah, you do. But that end scene is so beautifully. It's so beautiful and erotic and emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
that was a beautiful scene. But I think that's really interesting that you can have two characters and really invest yourself in their story, even though they're sort of just like these oddball people that don't even really know each other. She's just sort of piecing together his existence, and he's sort of just like, you're unique. And they have this wonderful moment. We have no idea if they stay together forever. They have that whole montage at the end on a moto through the streets of Paris. Very standard, but it could go anywhere. It really could go anywhere.
I think that,
I'd be okay with that.
like them being together or not being together, I would
That's not the
argue,
point.
is not the point. The
No,
point is that
Exactly.
she takes a risk. Is that the whole point of the movie is, okay, she spent so much time watching other people and getting involved in their own weird intricacies that she's not really making a stake in what she wants, and now she's doing it.
Yeah.
And there it is.
your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because
Having not seen the beginning of the movie, how did it?
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, not seeing the first 15 minutes of the movie would, plot-wise, actually, the first 15 minutes of the movie is basically table setting, right? It's
right. I mean,
yes.
when that guy showed up, I didn't know where he came from, so I was like, okay, she's interested in him. That's something. But the way that she went about trying to put herself out there, I thought was very strange, and I don't know. I thought it made her more watchable. Because I don't know, it's like she's going through all these meticulous things just to either attract his attention or kind of hide herself. And I don't know, it made the viewing experience kind of strange. It definitely highlighted more things about Amelie, and then when it got to the end, I was like, okay, this is cool. But just like particularly based on just what we've seen of her throughout this movie, like whether or not they stay together, I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, and again, really not information that's needed. I do want to, because we have like a minute left on this question. I felt there's a weird moment where I was watching that and I felt a little, like in so many movies you see when the people meet, like they meet in a bar, right? Or there's some bullshit setup, like they get in a cab together, or like, you know, there's a dumb thing. And this movie, it's like it's constructed, right? They're like chasing each other, and there's this whole, and I felt in a sort of weird moviegoer way, right? Which I put yourself into the right into the thing, like kind of jealous. Like, I want that. Like, I want to meet someone and have that chase. Do you know what I mean? It just looked like, it's one thing I love about this movie. Right, is that they do sort of kind of chase each other and reveal stuff about themselves, right? But it's not like, oh, we meet in a bar and then we like, you know, not to bash Before Sunrise, right? But we meet in a bar and then we go and we talk about our stuff. There was so much energy and activity in this.
Well, an effort
in this
put
meeting.
into it.
Yeah.
It seemed exhausting though.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
but-
it did look. Well, they were like sleeping at the end, right? So
Like,
I mean,
how
yeah.
easily could like this movie had played out, but one of them just realized the other's crazy, and
I hope we get to one of my questions here.
or something. 'Cause, I mean, like, I don't
No,
know.
there were
like,
these moments. You're absolutely right. Where like one could be like, no.
she's
Like either one of them could have been like, "This is too weird."
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah,
But
I
I think
mean-
that's part of what's beautiful about it is that she sort of is testing him
Right.
with all of these. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a scavenger hunt.
Right.
She's giving him a scavenger hunt to knowing her,
Right.
not even just to finding her physical.
And they both
sort of
keep coming
knowing her.
back.
Yeah.
Right? They went ups the ante and they keep coming back. Super cool. We're gonna move on to our next question. Give me a little tossed here, my magic question box.
Did you crumple them?
I did.
Makes it easier to pick them out, I guess.
True.
Yeah. Should the narrator's origins have been revealed?
This is my question, actually.
Okay.
So you were touching on it actually, and real quick in the first question, and now that I'm thinking of your take on it,
I think no, he's not a character. I mean, he's.
well,
That's interesting because
Well,
is he a
he's-
character or is he just?
So
I-
for the viewers though,
Yeah.
right, we had this narrator throughout the movie, right, and
sort of omniscient.
yeah, yeah, exactly, and we never actually find out who that narrator is.
no, I
Right.
guess, and maybe
But
this
does
is
he need to be a person?
yeah, and this is the kind of thing I was thinking at first. I was
Or a
waiting.
character.
I was waiting for him to be revealed.
Oh,
now,
interesting.
And now the more I'm thinking about it, I like that he isn't,
Right.
because now I'm thinking he's more of a manifestation of Amelie's internal dialogue, of like all the things that he's saying might not exactly be true, but it's just her internal oddities kind of projecting outward of like,
Yeah.
oh, like I can picture this person likes these things. And she believes it because she's just going with it, and it's kind of her daydreams that she follows.
Does it also work in sort of? I mean, if you look at some of this director's other work, at least for me, and feel free to disagree, all of his movies sort of feel like dark fairy tales.
Yes.
Dark storybooks.
Yep.
Right. Even City of Lost Children, there's no narrator, but you kind of feel like
There could be.
there could easily be one, right? Delicatessen is post-apocalyptic, sort of fairy tale storybook, and to me, this just worked because it felt like we were, even from the beginning, right? We see her growing up, and we see it's not the wicked stepmother or stepfather, right? But her parents are very dysfunctional, right? Which then creates her. She's like this kind of princess, right? Who's like left wandering a decrepit, powerless kingdom.
Yeah.
Right? And so it has this very fairy tale component to me that made the narrator very effective. I thought.
Yeah, the narrator never bothered me. I was
Yeah.
just more like.
And I'm glad he wasn't revealed.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I think it would have been a disservice for sure.
Other thoughts?
Well, so there are like times throughout the movie where she like looks directly at the camera.
Yes.
So like, is the narrator actually there, or like, are
Right.
we like the narrator speaking, but are we the narrator?
Right.
Yeah,
have
total
this-
fourth wall.
I
This
have
whole
this
fourth wall
theory.
breaking, yeah.
Well,
I-
then at the end, like the dude looks at the camera too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
So is
I
he the
guess-
narrator? Right, that's that possibility, right?
well, I mean, it's just so who in this world is aware of the narrator?
Right.
Is it just them, or is it like a lot of people? Or
It's a crazy world where everyone here is the narrator.
yeah, like
No, I have this theory that kind of like what you said,
Uh-huh.
where all of those weird. So throughout the movie, you get this picture that Amelie is very observant, and she sort of intuitively knows what needs to happen to make things go the way that she wants them to, or she thinks they should go. And my take on the narrator, especially in the opening scene, is, although, you know, some of the people, it's not like they're even relevant to the story, so maybe she hasn't even met them. But anyway, ignoring those people, my take is that the narrator is like her diary almost, like her internal, she knows these weird things about these people,
Yeah.
like that's how she identifies them in a journal somewhere, and like the narrator is sort of her internal monologue. But I think the fourth wall breaking moments, it's just a weird movie. Like it's just, you just have to accept that some of the stuff is there just to be like quirky and weird. I'm sure the director was like, there's a reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of playing with things, right? Like we see the one moment where she thinks she has set up a meeting with a guy that she is interested in, and he ends up leaving with another waitress where she works. And she's so disheartened, you see her like collapse into a pool of water.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of playing with image
Yes.
and stuff here. But with that narrator, it was sort of weird. While I was watching this, I did have a weird, because I think we've been watching a lot of like sci-fi and superhero movies lately.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I would not be surprised if at the end of this movie, it just sort of pulled out, the camera pulled out, and we saw like a sleeping pod on like a generation ship. Right? And realized that we were just in this one girl's bizarre simulation, right? Where she was just like making everything happen.
Yeah.
And so on, you know?
Kind of a master of her own universe.
Yeah, because she kind of was, right? Like, you mentioned she manipulates this person and this person and does this thing and this thing. Mm-hmm. It's very, very, very strange. All right. Our next question. We're up to question 4, where we do 5 questions. We have this one and one more. Do we judge... This is actually a really great question because you guys said this word 10 times. Do we judge foreign films differently than American films?
This is my question.
I think this is actually a great... And I'll say at the end why I think, but I want to hear from you guys. Why I think this is a great question. Do we judge foreign films differently than American films?
I'll lead why I asked the question.
Yeah.
Why? Because I found myself at the end of the movie. I was watching it, knowing we were going to do this. I was watching it like, what questions do I have? And at the end of the movie, I was like, I don't even know how to digest that movie, or like how to understand it, or how to even pick it apart. Like it's just so outside your standard canon of movies. And I don't know whether it's good and I accept it the way that it is because it's a foreign movie, or whether it stands alone. And that's sort of why I was like, I just don't. Yeah.
So,
how do you...
Am I hearing you correctly? So, does it get some leeway because it's a foreign film?
Right. Exactly.
Right? Okay. Thoughts?
Is it a good movie if it had been made... Would it have been made if it was an American movie? I mean, would it be
That's
the
a
same?
really legitimate question.
I guess Wes Anderson
right?
is, so if he made it...
Yeah, kind of the American version of it. Yeah, I mean, actually, this movie felt a lot of, I mean, it's a movie about process. It's very much about how things ripple out and affect other people.
Yeah.
She grows up, and because she wasn't, hugged by her dad a lot, when she gave her checkups, it made her heart beat, which made them think this. And so it's all about these, like, things affecting other people.
So actually, just really quickly, because I want to just stretch that out a little bit, because it's a really important point. So this character is really created by the fact that her parents have their own quirks. Her dad's an army doctor, and he never interacts with her. And she doesn't really have friends. And so when she sees her dad, which is only once a year for her checkup, because her dad's a doctor, which is a little weird because normally you go to a different doctor, right? But she gets very excited because it's her dad, and her heart beats quickly, and so he thinks that she has a heart condition.
Yes.
Right?
And the mother then homeschools her.
So right, so she has to stay home because she's too fragile, maybe, right, to be in school, and her mom has to homeschool her. And so this movie very cleverly looks at family dynamics and stuff, but through this very fantastic lens, which really almost screams foreign film to us. Or
But it's
Wes
always,
Anderson, right?
but it always feels real. Like it doesn't feel out of. It's fantastical in presentation, but very real in its origins. Like, and it's about how things lead to other events.
Right.
Like it reminded me of some of the parts of like Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Actually,
But I still want to know, do we have different rubrics for foreign films than we do for American films? I mean that's ultimately.
I would say no. I mean, a good.
Why do you say yes?
Well, it's because like I can't fully understand this movie. Like when I'm reading like the subtitles,
it's, really hard,
it's like a translator who sounds like me is telling me what's happening in the movie.
That's
and
interesting.
it's just like like the French is so detailed and all that. It's just like when I'm reading this, I'm like, okay, I didn't read all that text. All right, let's just keep going, and just I can't fully get everything from a foreign film because if I don't speak the language, like that's just kind of. I mean, this movie just definitely showed me how important language is for like identifying with a character and identifying with a story. Like, I mean, I get the quirkiness of it just visually, but like
following the plot.
Following the script beat by beat, I definitely missed stuff.
No, I would agree because I speak French relatively well. But even for me, I was reading the subtitles because still it can get a little fast, so I can't quite. But it was easier. I could like sort of glance through the subtitles to make sure I got the few vocab words I was missing, and then I could resume watching. But it is hard with foreign films to have to read and then look at what's happening. You sort of have to try and do both at the same time. So that alone makes the viewing experience different, which I think in turn can make the interpretation and then the critique.
But to counter though, I would say that we do have the language of movies. Like film is its own language, and if you turn the sound off and you don't have dialogue, you should still be able to get a general idea of what is going. So like in the sense of, I totally and I agree, like the context and everything is different, but it's kind of like genres of music is how I would think of it. It's like, oh, Latin music versus rock music or whatever. It's kind of, it has different window dressing, but at the end of the day, it's music. You know, it's storytelling. It's this other kind of thing. So
I would argue.
Like cultural context and like certain things, but at the end of the day, yeah, like I can't, maybe not as a native Frenchman, get everything in this movie, but I get the general like kind of message it's sending. I would argue. Like a good movie is a good movie, regardless of its...
I would say having a film background, as you do, gives you a better filmic lens to look at this. Like I can only judge this movie by its plot, its acting, and by the script. Like I have a limited window that I'm looking at.
And that's actually, we have a few seconds left, so I'm going to play my moderator card and steal the last word on this question. I think you actually just, in some ways, answer your own question. And I think it's actually the way that a lot of American films do a disservice to us. Because all we have is the image, right, the plot, the sound, and so on. That's my phone telling me that we're out of time. And I thought this movie, I completely followed this movie. Right, and I didn't find, and some people will, right? We can't judge that. Some people will find having better subtitles a little more difficult and so on. Which is understandable. But I think that a good movie is just a good movie, right? And it just stands there. And I love what you just said. You should be able to turn the sound off, right? And at least get what the image is giving you.
Yeah.
Right? You may not get all of it, right? Because sound design is a very important thing, and so on. But I think we do judge foreign films differently. But the way I look at it is, I actually think that American films get a bit more of a pass.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you can have a shitty American film, you know, and a mediocre foreign film, which is mediocre is better than shitty. And people talk about them in the same sort of breath. You know what I mean? I think we're actually more critical of foreign films because we have to engage them harder, so they lend themselves to criticism than a lot of American films, which... A lot of trash. A lot of foreign films are trash too, right? Because a lot of films are made all over the world. Looking at you, Bollywood. Nobody is piss off anyone who's Indian who's watching.
Oh boy.
But Bollywood's come a long way. But come on, we all have to admit the beginning. But yeah, so I think we're all agreeing that we maybe are a little more critical. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Sure.
Our last question. We're not doing this question, but I love it. It was Eric's. So what happened? Because he fell asleep for part of the film.
Have you? Do you grasp it a little bit from our conversation, a little more, or are big gaps still missing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I'd just have to see it again under different.
I would advise that. Yeah. So I love this as our last question. I think it's a great question to go out on. In the spirit of the film's narrator, what was everyone's favorite thing? And least favorite thing about the movie. So your favorite thing and your least favorite thing about the movie.
Well, because in the movie, the narrator is describing people's like, this person loves this kind of thing. They don't like this.
Yeah. So who wants to go first?
Do you want to go first, honey?
Sure. Okay. I think my favorite thing about the movie was just its attention to detail and just how it had a complete through line of action in the sense of it would introduce things that I would necessarily where's this going? And then follow it through. And was really consistent on that. I think my least favorite, and this is a good movie that I enjoy, I think its best asset was sometimes its own detriment sometimes of having been colored by other movies of not only just Wes Anderson stuff, but people who try to copy it. I think, like, because we watch movies and they don't exist in a vacuum.
Right.
I could picture other movies that I've seen trying to do this, and because of this movie's existence, get distracted and kind of lose the scent of the trail. But then it always brought me back. So I guess I'm kind of subtly, backhandedly complimenting it at the same time. But it's one of those movies that's so strong in its vision that just creates people who are going to try to copy it.
I think you raise a good point, though, and I think this is really for anyone who... it sort of cracks me up that like I can go to a bar and people are talking about like this beer or this wine. People talk about food, right, and the continuum of food and so on. I think you have the same idea with movies, right? I mean, I'll use the most basic thing. Don't sit down and talk about an Avengers movie or a Marvel movie, right, without having seen the shit that came beforehand, right? So you have some idea of where they're going, like how they're getting better, right? Who's doing another thing. Don't watch Westerns and start talking shit about them unless you've sat down and watched a bunch. I think what you sort of get at is that a lot of times we don't watch a lot of these movies. You can become very confused and distracted by like, what are they doing? What this other person did? And you're not realizing that no, in the continuum of movies, this movie did this, this movie did this, this movie did this. I think that's really important. If I can sort of bogart on your thing. But if you take movies seriously, right, you want to get some grasp of like where things are coming from, who made what, and where they're going. Thing you liked and your favorite thing and your least favorite thing.
I mean, I liked, even though it could be interpreted different ways, I loved just the actions that she did, like her thought processes that like led to certain things. I mean, the way that she like messed with the guy, like putting the metal pin through
the shop owner who was really abusive. Yeah,
it's just like she is very smart. She was able to come up with all these insane like traps, like a la like Tom and Jerry cartoons. Like I'm gonna do this to like have this happen, and I thought that was great. And I don't know, my least favorite thing. I guess at times like the surrealness and the quirkiness kind of took me out, because like sometimes this movie was, like you said, is like dramatic, and I just feel like the constant like zooming in of like oh shit type of zooming in. I was like, okay, like let's get to it, kind of like I don't know.
Director's getting a little too cheeky at times.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess that would be the only thing that really like took me out of it. I thought it's a very smart movie. It's a very funny movie, and like comedy can only work if the drama also works. So they both worked really well, and
nicely balanced.
Okay, so now that I've had plenty of time to think, I think my favorite part about the movie was the success that it had, following all of those different plot lines, all of these tangent stories that she went on with other people's lives that she could sort of meddled in. That was done really successfully while still progressing the main, if there was a main plot. I don't know, it's sort of all just the plot. It just all worked together in a big stream towards the end. My least favorite part, I think I'm just pulling this out of my butt, because it's really hard to pick one, is I would say my least favorite characters would be the people in the cafe that she works in. I don't really know that they're... I mean, I like the Taba lady who sells the tobacco and the ex-boyfriend and their like weird love story. But I would say overall, it sort of was... I don't know what my problem with... I don't think I really had a problem with it. Honestly, I'm just picking it because I feel like I need to say something.
Remember, sometimes your least favorite thing can just be, I loved everything, but the icing on the cake was maybe a little sweet. Right? I still had 2 pieces, but it was a little sweet. Right?
Some of the cafe scenes, I was like, why are we still here? But I mean, honestly, it didn't like pull me too bad out of it. It didn't pull me out of the movie enough for me to be like, that's terrible.
And I think that's where, like, if I join in, I think... just following her story, I think, was my favorite thing. The navigation, right, of the story. But I agree. I think that the cafe... There's a character in the cafe who is just telling when the movie was made. And to some degree, that's French. Is a misogynistic stalker. Right? I mean, he's literally a dude who, like, he sits there, he has an ex-girlfriend that works there, and he speaks into a tape recorder whenever she does something, right? So if she takes food to someone and says hi to him, he's like, 4:15. Yeah, she's trying to hook up. Right? It's very ugly.
Yeah.
Right, if you actually look at it, it's very ugly and gross. And my least favorite thing, I think, was that I never saw a consequence for him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I wanted that dude to have a consequence.
They sort of just dropped
Yeah.
storyline. I mean, because
Yeah.
it really wasn't their story. They were
Right.
just sort of.
But I still
side
want
story.
something. I want
Well,
like
at the end,
even if she did something to him, right? I want there to be
did
a
the other
consequence.
dude basically say, "I'm stealing your girlfriend," like to his face? Is that what
Well,
happened?
no, the other guy. So there's another character
The
in
writer.
the cafe. He's a
Yeah.
writer who's very unsuccessful.
He said, like, get used to that. Like, get used to the fact that I'm stealing your girlfriend. Is that what he said?
Well, I think his point. I think his point was like get used to the fact that you're going to lose girlfriends, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just who you are.
Right. But then he had a happy ending,
Well-
right? Because he went out and and the stuff he wrote was now graffiti on a wall.
Which she did.
Right, which she did, but he felt
But-
very gratified, right?
yeah.
You see him doing a little
Well,
hop over a chain down the street. But that guy really bugged me. But I love the follow of her story.
I would argue
Like,
that guy actually did get a little bit of a comeuppance in the
Yeah.
sense of, so you see him at the beginning of the
Well,
movie.
he drives away this woman.
Well,
Who
yes.
They sort of
Right.
have this
Exactly.
really great relationship for a hot second.
Yeah, so
And then he goes like crazy again
Exactly.
and drives her away.
But I felt like that was sort of. I feel like that was him returning back to his insane, psychotic norm.
yes.
Do you know what I mean? So that's where he's safest and he feels most comfortable.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
And I really wanted something. I wanted one less example of her superpower, if I can use that term, right? To sort of poke
Oh,
him.
like her positively changing.
You're right.
people.
Or just a consequence, like the shop owner
Right.
who right, she goes to the shop owner's house every day and just in this horrible way. Makes his slippers replaces his slippers with two small slippers, like changes the doorknobs, like just messes with this guy. Thinks he's going insane, right?
He literally is like shaking
Yeah.
pouring his drink.
because he's an abusive asshole, right? To the very kind gentleman who works for him at his shop, right? And so on. But that takes all of our time. And so I think in general we all really enjoy this movie.
Yeah.
We would advise that you watch this movie if you like really quirky foreign films with a lot of what I call magical realism.
Yes.
And a beautiful palette,
Yeah.
right? It's an incredible use of color and imagery. And I'll go back to this one of the I think most touching and gratifying at the end love stories, right? That we've seen
That was really great.
in a while. It's really you feel really good afterwards.
Yeah.
It's a movie that you feel really good about afterwards.
I remember
Really good,
now
right?
why, I think it's honestly been 10 years since I've seen this, but I remember now why my only emotion that carried me through the last 10 years was I really liked that movie. So I feel like that's the
Yeah.
only
So
thing I
depressingly
remember.
beautiful. For 10 years, this kept AOL alive.
No, like that's what
It's a very
that's what
Amelie
I-
thing.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
that's what I've remembered from
Yeah.
the movie to when I watched
Right,
it 10
yeah.
years ago.
That's a good pick.
And
Yeah.
I think 10 years from now, that is again the same sentiment that
Yeah.
if I remember nothing about it, it'll just
It's had a great shelf life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, in
The emotion
closing,
factor, yeah.
this has to be in the top 10 date movies.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can see
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Right? I think if you're taking someone on a safe date movie that's a lot of fun, but still is a little sexy at the end, this movie...
Because there's some sexy parts in that
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. But it's not one of those movies where, like, at the end of the date, you're like, oh, are we supposed to do it now?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
It's just,
true.
it's quite nice,
Yeah.
you know, for a date movie. But thank you for joining us. So we hope to see you next week when we'll have Alec back. Yeah. Cheers.